Thank you. Gentlemen, in a couple of moments, Earl Hauer and Scott Kovarovics are going to tell you about the Isaac Walton 3R program. I have to ring off and go to another meeting, but they're nice enough to let me introduce this one. Now, I want to point out to you that this 3R program is not just another pie-in-the-sky dream program that requires a miracle of some sort to work. It isn't a magic bullet, and it's going to require hard work on your part, but this new program is, in my opinion, the most significant new IWLA program to come along in many years. Now, that opinion is based upon one and only one fact. This new program has the potential to impact chapters with shooting facilities at the local level, and in a way that will make possible a dramatic and positive shift in the way we conduct business, the facilities we own and use, and the benefits we offer our members. It also has the potential of attracting large numbers of new members to our chapters, new members already interested in and seeking the opportunities we offer. Over the past decade or so, participation in the hunting and fishing sports we enjoy has, at best, atrophied. Participation in the hunting and fishing sports at all levels isn't growing. It's at best flat. The tradition of father-to-son mentoring isn't working as more and more people move to the cities. Those people who manufacture and sell firearms, hunting, fishing, camping, and other outdoor equipment and supplies are seeing a long-term downward trend in sales. And the state agencies have noticed a downward trend in hunting and fishing licenses, as well as the number of people who buy and use those equipments and supplies. The manufacturers and state agencies have already formed ad hoc groups to talk about these issues and seek solutions. Those groups have become increasingly formalized and active, and they're seeking to partner with new shooting facilities throughout the states in an organized and ongoing program to attract new hunters and fishers who will enter the sport through non-traditional mentoring programs. That much has already occurred. For quite some years, former IWLA Executive Board member Tom Chirula and I have spoken about the potential for chapters to obtain Pittman Robinson funds through their various state hunting and fishing agencies. Those funds, which are raised through the national excise tax on firearms, ammunition, and outdoor sporting goods and supplies of all types, can be made available to us. And those fund numbers in the hundreds of millions of dollars each year. I'm telling you that this convergence of various interests is occurring right now, and the potential for us to partner with these agencies and to obtain funds from those agencies is there right now, and it is huge. For the past 3 years, the Arlington Fairfax chapter has been working hand in hand with the Virginia Department of Game and Inland Fisheries, or Virginia DGIF, to set up a program, a branding program, to recruit new hunters and fishers and to encourage and increase public awareness of and participation in the shooting sports. A few weeks ago, the Arlington Fairfax chapter signed a 15-year contract with Virginia DGIF. That contract requires us to hold 4 open-to-the-public events each year. These events will include one-on-one mentoring during shotgun, rifle, pistol, archery, and fishing training events. They will include such things as how to locate and use public hunting and fishing properties, how to hunt and fish successfully, how to clean and preserve game, and to do so safely, legally, and ethically. I believe this is the first partnering contract ever signed between a state agency and a private shooting facility in the United States. It's certainly the first of its kind in Virginia. And in return, the Virginia DGIF handed us a check for an amount that far exceeds the annual budget of the vast majority of IWLA chapters. So I'm telling you, these things can not only be done, they are being done and have been done. We've done it, and so can you. And now Scott's going to tell you about how IWLA can help you and accomplishing these things through IWLA Shooting Sports Conservation Committee. So listen carefully, guys, because this is going to change everything. And now I'm going to ring off and go to my other meeting. So pay attention, guys. This is a good one. Thanks.
Well, good evening, and really appreciate Ernie being able to kick this meeting off and for his leadership on the committee and on these issues over a longer period of time. So, again, thanks everybody for your time tonight. I want to provide a broad overview of this broader national strategy to recruit and retain more hunters and recreational shooters going forward. So broadly for the presentation tonight, what's R3? What's the problem we're trying to solve? Why a national plan? What is that plan? What's IWLA's role? And why does all of this matter? What's R3? 3 R's: recruitment, retention, reactivation. Recruitment, bringing folks into the sports the first time. Getting new demographics involved is key to the future, as Ernie alluded to, with the trends in participation in hunting in particular. Retention, keeping the participants you've currently got. That's a real challenge for state agencies in particular, among not only hunters but anglers as well. There is a significant churn in these populations, and the states are struggling to keep up with just retaining the folks that they have. There's a separate component to this of reactivation, which is trying to get folks who haven't participated in the sports, often for several years, re-engaged. So that's what R3 stands for, this terminology that everyone is using. What's the problem? I think most of us are very familiar with the problem, particularly on the hunting side. The number of hunters has been declining steadily for decades. There isn't much diversity in the sports in general. There's exceptions to all of this, but generally there's not much diversity. This is an aging white man sport, to not put too fine a point on it. On the shooting sports side, participation is more stable. It's been growing slightly in some cases, not all of the shooting sports, but there's little diversity as well when you look at ethnic diversity. I think we also know that hunters and recreational shooters fund conservation in America. The excise tax we're paying on guns and ammo, licenses, permit fees make up 75% of state Fish and Wildlife Agency budgets. And more importantly, it's hunter and shooter dollars that have paid over decades to protect habitat, to expand the public land base in this country, which now is available to everyone, whether or not they ever hunt or fish. So there's much broader public benefit here that flows from the funding that hunters and target shooters provide. This graph just illustrates, the broader issue with hunting over time. You've seen this decline. There was a slight increase in 2011, the last time that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service did a comprehensive analysis of this. And as folks really bore down into those numbers, which initially looked positive, what they concluded was the slight uptick in 2011 was for lapsed hunters coming back into the sport, largely tied to the economic downturn. They stopped engaging in other potentially more expensive recreational activities and came back to hunting. There wasn't new participants. We've got a new survey that will be coming out in the next several months. It'll be interesting to see whether the trend goes back down or perhaps changes. But the long-term trend is really clear, and the broader demographic trends, I think, are clear to all of us as well. The fundamental question, should we expect this to change without doing anything different? And the fundamental answer to this is no. The hunter trends in particular are all pointing in the same direction over time. The Wildlife Management Institute, which is a 100-year-old organization of wildlife professionals, well respected for the work that it does on conservation and representing really professional wildlife managers, they've looked at all of these R3 programs across the country. As many of you know, there have been programs in place for years to get new folks to try the sports, right? Fishing derbies with 22s, right? One-day, half-day events, bring people out to a range, let them shoot a BB gun, let them shoot a 22, give a chance to try this out. everybody takes their target home with them. They get a hot dog too, and we count the number of people who came through. A lot of outputs. We don't track folks over time. We have no idea whether or not these folks became hunters or recreational shooters, but we've counted a bunch of numbers. And WMI went back and looked at hundreds of these programs over time, and they reached a fundamental conclusion that they weren't working. And as importantly, that these programs weren't trying to make new hunters, they were trying to make more hunters that looked like the existing participants, basically focused on the sons, daughters, and grandchildren of the existing participants, largely ineffective and not reaching new demographics. We all know the country's getting more ethnically diverse, more urban, but the focus of the existing R3 programs often fails to capture that. There are exceptions, but out of the 500, I think WMI found about 10 programs that had the structure, the criteria, the assessment that it believes the best programs should include. So a broader national plan. So about 6 years ago, a broad, diverse cross-section of state fish and wildlife agencies, the firearms and archery industries, and a wide range of conservation, hunting, and recreational shooting organizations, including the League, came together to form the Council to Advance Hunting and Shooting Sports. And the purpose of this coalition was not only to assess the problem, but to work together to develop a nationwide strategy designed to turn that graph around, bottom it out, and start bringing those numbers back up across hunting and shooting sports and diversify participation. This plan is based on extensive evaluation of the problem and the most effective R3 programs. WMI led all that research. The plan went through a series of iterations and was ultimately adopted by the Council about a year ago. You can see the plan in its entirety at the website shown on this slide. I think there's also maybe a link from our website to it as well. And this plan has several fundamental elements to it. First is to increase R3 capacity at the state agency level. Not have one wildlife biologist who's got 14 jobs already for which you add this R3 piece to it, but have dedicated staff who are focusing on this. That's their job, engaging folks outside the agency, inside the agency, making it a priority. And also for agencies to use more modern tools to communicate with participants. As many of you may know, some state agencies still rely on that thick regulation rule book as the way it communicates with, basically its customers. And I think we probably most agree that that's not a particularly effective way to do it. Using more modern communication tools that you can use to track participants over time and really understand if you're making an impact. The second one is to grow and better connect the broader community. That's the states, the industries, and organizations like ours and others to improve communication between all parties. And the Council is really set up in large part to facilitate this information sharing. And finally, to develop and implement proven R3 strategies. Agencies need plans to do this, and they need to have a strategy moving forward. It's critical to expand and diversify audiences, and what we really need to be doing is not what we've been doing over the last several decades, is having programs that get set up and just run year in, year out without evaluating their effectiveness. This is an issue so much for the League as it is for the agencies. But I think we all want to be doing this, understanding is the work we're doing producing the outcomes we want it to produce? If so, that's great. Keep going. If not, what changes are you going to make to be more effective in achieving the overall goals we want to achieve? Okay, so what are some of the keys to success moving forward? First one, diversify audiences. That's the most important thing that has to be done. You also need to break the mold of past programs, including hunter education. The reality is one size doesn't fit all. This evolution is already taking place. Anyone who's been involved in hunter education over the last 5 years has seen a significant change in how programs are delivered, and that's part of a broader evolution. And I think as part of this too, we all need to recognize that folks have different motivations for their participation in hunting or recreational shooting. Motivations that may not align with some of the ones that we have, right? And we've got to be open to that, provided their motivations are legal and ethical. No one's suggesting anything to the contrary, right? But there's a lot of other motivations that people have for why they want to get involved, and we have to be open to that going forward. And the state agencies having dedicated R3 staff is critical on that side. This slide, I think, really comes to more the direct connection with the league and how we can contribute to success, right? People need places to learn and experience the sports. Ernie mentioned, the traditional kind of father-son, father-daughter, model. So many of us who grew up in rural parts of the country, right? You stepped out the back door with dad or grandpa or grandma, right? They put a BB gun or a 22 in your hand, you pointed at a can out the backyard, and you squeezed off a shot. Right, and that happened all across the country. Same thing with hunting, right? You got your orange vest, you went out the back door, and off you went. And we recognize that that's not possible in so many places today. You can still find it, right? But where the population centers are, you just can't do that. Where are the places where people can go to learn and experience these sports safely? The second thing, skilled mentors, right? Again, as fewer people participate in hunting in particular, and the barriers, right, to participating in hunting and becoming an independent hunter are so much greater than becoming an independent target shooter or a fisherman or an angler, is you need, folks that can help people who don't have that social support structure like so many of us did growing up to improve their skills and become participants over time. And you've got to have different types of mentors. You've got to have women, younger people, bringing in folks from different ethnic backgrounds. And finally, you got the active partnerships between the state agencies, industries, and organizations like ours. Success depends on a shared collective effort. No one of these entities is going to move the needle dramatically. We're going to be successful by working jointly together and playing to the strengths of these various components. So what are the opportunities for the Isaac Walton League? And I think that's the way I at least look at this. Ernie talked about this as really an opportunity for the organization to have an impact on issues that are important to us. So think about this. Our chapters provide the places where people can go to safely learn and experience the sports for the first time, right? Increasingly, our chapters are suburban. The urban communities where so many people live are closer than ever before, whether that's in Des Moines or Ames, Iowa, or here in the greater Washington area where we have significant chapter presence within 30 or 50 miles of the nation's capital. Ernie's chapter, Arlington Fairfax chapter in Centerville, Virginia, right off of Interstate 66, neighboring one of the fastest growing counties in America, right, in a metropolitan area with, some 3 to 5 million people. So we're close by. Our members are the mentors. They're playing that role today. They've been playing it for decades. We've got widespread delivery of hunter education. So we've got not only the places, but we've got the people who can help mentor new participants. I think it's an opportunity to strengthen or initiate partnerships with state agencies. In some cases, some of our chapters, as Ernie mentioned, his chapter, or state divisions, have long-standing and active relationships with their state fish and wildlife agencies. They're working together not only on hunter education, but on habitat projects, for example, or other things. In other cases, those relationships aren't particularly strong or they don't exist at all. This is an opportunity not only to get connected around hunting and the shooting sports, but to be able to be working more closely with state agencies on a range of other issues. I was at a meeting a few weeks ago, the North American Conference of State Fish and Wildlife Agencies, and I was talking with a number of state agency heads, and we were talking about things like working together on water quality, habitat restoration projects, right? This can open doors to broader partnerships with the states. And one other thing that might be a possibility, I think particularly for some of our divisions, is to help fund these dedicated R3 positions in state agencies. The states don't have the resources to do this on their own. But in some cases, they can receive outside financial support to support these positions. And we've seen some cases in states where colleague organizations have contributed a portion or in some cases fully funded these positions. The state recruits and hires and is the day-to-day manager of the person. So the groups aren't involved in personnel management. The states are doing that. They're contributing the resources that make this dedicated capacity possible. So what are the next steps for us? I think there's three really important ones. The first one is determine the specific roles we want to play engaging new participants. And there's several potential roles. Initial outreach, so really trying to spark that awareness and interest among folks, right? Going to where they may be and introducing the concept of trying to hunt or trying shooting sports. The second one is trial, providing opportunities for folks to actually try the sport. So someone else may do the initial outreach, and then we're providing the places where folks can come and try the sports for the first time. And then continued support, that mentoring piece, right? Obviously, for the subset of that kind of initial group that tries it, there's going to be some folks who won't want to try it again, some people who may move in and out, and others who say, this is for me, I want to build my skills, and that's a role that we can play. So the question is for our chapters really, and not for the national organization to dictate by any means, to be looking at these opportunities and making some decisions about the roles that that chapter believes it's best suited to play. Next steps also are what we're doing today and need to do going forward is broaden awareness about the broader issue, the broader national strategy among our chapters, and an opportunity for this organization to make an impact on these issues. I think the Shooting Sports Conservation Committee can play an important leadership role as it is already. That we need to expand that. We need to get to a point where we're actually able to identify specific chapters that want to get more actively involved. And then finally, proactively engage with state agencies. This national plan, as you can imagine, is fairly broad in scope. It sets out a broad strategy and the critical elements of it. State agencies, for the most part, are going to take the lead on stepping down from this national plan to more detailed state-specific plans, right? They're going to bring in those partners in that particular state to help implement the strategies going forward. This is a role I think the national office can play. We can help identify those states, and we're doing that already, that are out front in developing these plans, that are really moving forward with a broader R3 initiative and work to get not only our chapters, but our state divisions engaged with those state agencies for the planning process. So we've got three steps here, and the first one really being absolutely critical in terms of what roles do we want to play, which then I think really informs not only what individual chapters are doing, but what the national organization can be coming back to the broader Council to Advance Hunting and Shooting Sports and identifying this is a role that the Isaac Walton League of America writ large can play in advancing this strategy. And I think then it becomes something that ends up being kind of a two-way flow from not only what we can do, but what's needed, and then how can we help fill some of those needs across the country. How do you continue to help this strategy evolve based on what we know? How do you expand beyond the initial wave of participants? How do we foster a new generation of mentors? There's a meeting that's going to happen next month or in early June in Lincoln, Nebraska, that's bringing some of these same parties together to have a discussion about how do we foster the next generation of mentors, particularly for folks who can mentor hunters. And so, again, I think there's a real opportunity, as Ernie mentioned too, for the league to lead on this. There's a clear nexus between the problem and our organization at all levels. our community base is a unique asset here. Whether or not we as an organization have more facilities under one organization for shooting sports than any other in the country, I'm not really sure. But we're probably one of a very small number. When you look at our chapter structure, 230 chapters across the country, about half of those have facilities for shooting sports. And other organizations, which we're all very familiar with, right, they don't have these facilities. They come to our chapters for their events, right, to utilize our facilities. And I think the same thing goes true for that mentor base. But I think we have to be clear that only doing what we're doing now isn't enough. It's been shown over and over again. We're not moving the needle with the existing programs. And it's not enough for us to say, well, we're in a diverse area, and therefore we're already, achieving the over outcomes here. Now, if we're actively involved in engaging more diverse audiences, then we could say that. But simply being in a diverse area, like we are here in the greater metropolitan Washington area, isn't enough. And Ernie mentioned this too. This is going to be hard work going forward, right? Not only for our organization, but I think for the much, much broader community, right? And I know this is a cliche, but I think it holds true. I mean, we're really at a fork in the road. There's two roads in front of us. One is the road we know very, very well. We've traveled it for decades. The car drives itself. But the reality is, with the demographic changes that are taking place in this country, and that isn't just ethnic diversity. That's an aging baby boom population of white men is really a road to nowhere. The other road is one that we haven't traveled very frequently, maybe not at all. We're not sure exactly all the twists and turns, right? But that's a road that's going to lead us to a better destination ultimately for the future of hunting and shooting sports. And ultimately, that's what it boils down to. This is about sustaining the future of hunting and recreational shooting in America. And the fact of the matter is, for a significant funding base for conservation that benefits not only people who hunt and fish, but frankly, every American who does anything outdoors on a land base that has been conserved and protected and opened for public use, in part from the hard-earned dollars that sportsmen have contributed over decades since the 1930s and the 1950s. So that's the overall plan in a nutshell. We really appreciate folks joining us tonight. I'm more than happy to answer any questions about the plan or next steps going forward.